Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm trying to get on this story live, but it happened actually at 11:04 a.m. today. An active shooter at Fort Stewart down in Georgia, one of the biggest Army bases east of the Mississippi. 5 soldiers have been shot. It's continuously in flux right now. We're getting updates. The president will be apparently commenting later on this. The shooter has been apprehended. I don't know what condition he is in. I'm going to play this from NBC News. They're right live on this case right now.
In Georgia, where the U.S. Army base at Fort Stewart says an active shooter situation is unfolding there. The Army base saying casualties have been reported. They say the situation is still ongoing. A lockdown has been put in place there, with officials telling people to stay inside, close and lock all windows and doors. You can see that advisory, that alert on screen there. Our Jesse Kirsch is tracking all of this. And Jesse, this is an all hands on deck situation.
Yeah, Hallie, we know that the FBI is now involved along with the military. We know from the governor of Georgia that law enforcement is involved as well, and that the governor is in touch with authorities. And this situation has schools locked down more than 25 miles away. I want to share this tweet that we have a short time ago from Governor Brian Kemp in Georgia. And I want to flag a couple things he mentions there. He says they're in close contact with law enforcement. He also says that his family is saddened by today's tragedy. He also says we are keeping the victims, their families, and all those who answer the call to serve in our hearts and prayers. And of course, Hallie, we unfortunately cover active shooter situations far too frequently. And I think it's striking to see the governor referring to this situation with the terms tragedy and victims at this early hour. Here's what we know about Fort Stewart. It is about 41 miles outside of Savannah, Georgia, in the eastern part of the state. And it is a central facility for both training as well as deployment. And in fact, I want to read a part of what we know from the installation's website. It says the largest military aircraft can land at Hunter, referring to the air portion of this facility, load the biggest equipment in the Army inventory, and then deploy both equipment and soldiers within an 18-hour wheels-up timeline to contingency operations anywhere in the world. And as you mentioned, Hallie, officials at this point are saying that there are multiple casualties and that the situation is ongoing. That last update from authorities on the Facebook page for this military installation came about 45 minutes ago, and I keep refreshing to see if there is any update, and just did it again right now, and that is still the latest, Hallie. So from about 45 minutes ago, authorities telling us there was an active shooter incident, a lockdown status at Fort Stewart Hunter Army Airfield in Georgia, and that the situation remains.
Folks, keep in mind this report is about 2 hours ago, so it's continuously in flux.
It's ongoing.
We're hearing that 5 people were shot. We don't know their conditions. I will go to other updated reports as this broadcast continues. But these active shooter incidents, look, we just had one in New York last week where some crazy guy from Nevada came with a M4 rifle and shot and killed 5 people, including an NYPD police officer. So let's stay up on this right now.
With multiple casualties reported, Hallie. And of course, we're waiting for more information from authorities and keeping an eye on live pictures as they start coming in from the scene.
Jesse Kirsch, thank you. Let's bring in now our senior national security correspondent, Courtney Kuby, who's joining us now from her perch at the Pentagon. Court, we know that the FBI is coordinating now with the Army on this investigation. This all has unfolded in just the last few minutes. So I want to just note for viewers, this is coming in as we speak here. What else are you hearing from folks that you're talking to there at the Pentagon?
Yeah, we're just starting to get a little bit more detail. As Jesse was mentioned, there have been multiple casualties. And remember, when the military talks about casualties, they're often referring not just to people who may have been killed, but also injured. And that does appear to be the case for now, that there have been multiple people, at least 5, we are told, who have been injured as a part of this. There are no reports of any of those who have been killed at this point. But again, Hallie, I cannot stress enough about how this information, I'm sorry, I keep looking down because the information is literally coming in as we are standing here now. Just a scene set here. The lockdown began just after 11 a.m. Eastern time. Fort Stewart, as we heard from Jesse, it's just on the southeastern part of Georgia. There's about 10,000, give or take, men and women at that base. That's both uniform and civilian. It's home to the storied 3rd Infantry Division. The lockdown began after reports of an active shooter. At this point, it does appear to still be on lockdown, although we are chasing the possibility that maybe they have someone in custody. We're still chasing that. That is the Facebook.
That is absolutely right now. They do have someone in custody. Apparently, he is a soldier, and apparently some of the people he targeted were his fellow soldiers. So it could be almost like, and I don't want to get premature with this, but like a workplace violence type thing. And I don't want, again, I'm not investigating this. I don't have boots on the ground. I'm going to play this from Fox. They'll have more of an update.
4 local schools, 2 elementary and a middle school, have been placed on a soft lockdown after an abundance of caution, and the entire school district is closely monitoring this as well. For more information on this, I did want to bring in Bobby McDonald, who is a former Secret Service agent, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox as we continue to monitor this breaking news situation.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So, we don't have many details as of now. We do know that this is an active shooter situation at Fort Stewart in Georgia. And this is this is the largest Army post east of the Mississippi River. Knowing that, Bobby, what can you share with us in terms of the response, in terms of what is unfolding right now there on the ground?
Well, the military is very good at responding to incidents like this. Unfortunately, they've had numerous incidents in the past at various other bases, so they know how to react. They know how to lock in place. They know how to take orders when that order comes down, to keep the phone lines open, to shelter in place, to do what the practices have shown us have to do when we have an incident like this, and how to remain safe. You're absolutely right. That is one of the largest bases around. I happened to do some work there with the Secret Service a number of years ago. It's a huge location. I think the fact that we've heard that the suspect has apprehended is a very good sign, but that doesn't mean this incident is over. You're going to have the Army Criminal Investigative Division come in, do a workup with local police, state police, federal agencies are going to come in, see who this person was, what type of weapon they had. Are they a member of the military? Did they have training? Were they targeting particular people or a particular location? Were they a copycat of something that we saw in New York last week? That's one of the things that comes into play here. So a lot going on. As you said, we're only about an hour and a half or just about 2 hours away from the initial report. So a lot going on down there, but we need to make sure that that base is safe and that there are no other bad actors out there involved in this incident.
And given the fact that this is one of the largest Army posts in the United States, the layout of all of that, how does that factor in to a situation such as this, given the fact that it is so large and it has to cover a lot of ground right?
One of the things about these military bases, and you would think that they would be so safe from any type of attack, but no one, perhaps maybe military police on these military bases, is armed. So that is a little bit crazy. So if an active shooter comes in, who is going to take him down? Who is going to shoot this guy? And that is one of the concerns we have, that, these, we're getting, I'm getting another report. Let me just get this on the, this is, I think this report is up to 58 minutes ago. Many of these other reports are a couple of hours old. Let me put this up on the screen. And we'll get an updated report right now.
Information detail that we have not heard yet. And there it is, breaking from CNN, that the alleged gunman is an Army sergeant. That's something that we had not heard yet. CNN reporting that the alleged gunman is an Army sergeant. We know he's in custody. We know he's alive. What does that tell you? He's had a rank, a military rank.
He had a military rank. He obviously had issues too. And we don't know what those issues are. But law enforcement officials are going to work with him. They're going to interrogate him. It's going to be a long interrogation. Is there a manifesto somewhere that he prepared? It's going to be, typically you hear this of no rank people if something that's going to happen on a military base. But this person was a ranked individual, was a sergeant. He was going through something. I don't know. Was he angry? Was he depressed? Was he on meds and didn't have his meds? All these questions need to be answered, and they're going to be asked during the interrogation.
You know, where did he get the gun? If all these military bases, people are not allowed to be armed on these bases, then the question begs to be asked, how did this active shooter get the gun onto the base? There's got to be checkpoints. There's got to be security. Was it easy for him maybe to bring it in the trunk of his car? So all of these are questions that both the military police, the military investigators, the federal investigators, the FBI will be asking questions like this in this investigation. What was his mental state? What was his physical state? Is there a potential that he may have killed someone else at his home, for example? When we investigated murders like on the street, not first thing, but one of the major things we would do is go to the home of the shooter to see if he killed anyone else in his home. And that's sort of like investigation 101. And I'm sure the military investigators know that. Are there booby traps anywhere? Did he booby trap his car? Did he booby trap his workplace? Was he specifically targeting people that he worked at? We know right now, we don't have a name, that he is a sergeant. He did work on this Fort Stewart.
And we'll have to wait to see how it comes out.
So let's look at the clock together. All this started at 11:04, and now it's 2:38. So just a couple of hours, and within an hour now, we're expecting this news conference. So you might wonder, what information can we realistically hope to get from that news conference? What do you think?
Well, they'll try to update us on what we don't know at this particular time, and they'll probably try to shoot down any rumors that was out there on social media and whatever. They may release the identity of the individual. We don't know that yet. We just know he was an Army sergeant. We don't have his name. We don't have any information on that, so they may be releasing that, and they may talk about next steps. What happens here now? They're going to reassure the public that the base is safe as it was before this happened. And these sort of things, Gene, you can't predict. You can't predict when it's going to happen. You just have to be prepared when it does happen. And unfortunately, people were injured during this time, and I hope that status remains injured and not died.
That's right, because we know we have 2 or maybe even 3 in critical condition. So I'm sure if I had someone on the base right now, I would be worried about, are they sure? They've given the all clear. Are they sure there's still not some sort of danger? What does it take for law enforcement or military police to declare the all clear? Does the shooter in this case, have to give a statement that I was by myself, and do they believe that? I mean, how do you know for sure?
Well, you're a mother, so you're going to.
Yes, I'm going to worry about everything.
You're going to worry about. I know they said it's clear, but are they really clear? Until I hear from my low, I understand that. I get that, but if the military and the police say it's all clear, trust and believe it's all clear. It's safe. There's no further or pending danger that your loved one would have to face or go through at that particular time. The only question that you may have would be, am I going to allow my loved one to stay there since this incident happened here? But it can happen anywhere, at any time. So we just don't know. You can't predict when it's going to happen. If we could, it never would have happened, because the law enforcement officials would be proactive to stop it.
Well, I mean, I can see the all clear if someone has died, if the shooter has died, but in this case, he's still alive. I mean, how do we know he didn't have an accomplice?
Well, he's in custody. The suspect is in custody, and the police.
You know, as part of these investigations, of course, the thing that the police are going to do right away, they're going to get a search warrant for his cell phone. They're going to get a search warrant for his home. If he has a locker at work, they're going to get a search warrant for his locker. They're not going to leave anything to chance. So all of these things are part of the investigation, and there's far too many active shootings in this country. So it's almost like the police know this as a matter of course, because they're so used to responding to active shooters. I'm going to see if I can get a picture of him, and because they're saying that he is identified. Let's see if we could find out who he is. Let me get this picture off the screen, and I'll get this new report. I'll get this new report right up on the screen right now. This is all still very new, and let's see if we can get this up on the screen and get you guys updated to what's going on right now.
We have breaking news right now. Fort Stewart in Georgia is on lockdown because of an active shooter. Army officials say there are casualties and the incident is ongoing. They say one of the sections of the base was locked down around 11 a.m. and that law enforcement is on the scene. The FBI is also now offering support. Not a lot of details here yet, but of course we are monitoring this situation. What we do know right now is what the Army is telling us, an active shooter. So it sounds like right now this is still ongoing. And again, they are confirming there are victims here. ABC News senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez has more on this. Louis, what do we know so far?
Well, Diane, not much more than what you have been reporting so far. But what I can tell you is that when I've spoken to Army officials here at the Pentagon, they are very concerned about what is going on there and trying to get as many details as possible. One of the things that they're just not certain of right now is any information about the potential number of casualties that there may have been. We have that confirmation from Fort Stewart that, yes, there have been casualties in this incident, but they don't have a grasp yet, which is one part of the information flow that is not making its way here to the Pentagon. I should point out that Fort Stewart is a very large base. It's a very important base for the Army. It's home to the Army's 3rd Infantry Division, which is one of its larger armored units. So there's a lot of training that goes on there as well. There's also some attached airfields where some training goes on, and it's close to Savannah, Georgia. So when we see information about something like this, there are a couple of things to remember. We should remember that access to weapons on military bases is not easy. And at all times, whenever there is any kind of a military some kind of a shooting on a military base, we should remember that all weapons are accounted for and are kept in armories. So therefore, the only access that soldiers have to their weapons is through registered training. And it's when it's taken out of their armory. So when something like this happens, it more than likely will involve personal weaponry, which they are allowed to have as long as these are registered weapons. So for now, a lot of information is still trying to process its way here to the Pentagon, but we at least have this same confirmation from Fort Stewart's Public Affairs Office that there is a lockdown, that there have been some casualties, and that there is an ongoing active shooter situation.
And Louis, they're saying this was in the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team area. Do you know anything more about that location?
Well, this would be what it is that the base is a division headquarters. And so essentially that means we're talking about 20,000 personnel. Divisions are divided into brigades. So this is an armored unit. So that's why they have armored in their title. Brigade Combat Team is a division of about 3,500, 4,000 soldiers. And the various brigades make up the division. So this would have been an area that would have been potentially just designated for potentially a headquarters area for this brigade combat team or some kind of logistics facilities assigned to this. Remember, we are talking about an armored brigade, so there would be a lot of military hardware. We're talking about specifically Bradley fighting vehicles. We're talking about tanks. So you're going to have some maintenance areas, some depots that are associated with each one of these combat teams. So it's unclear exactly which one of these facilities that I've just listed is the one that is associated specifically with the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team. But at least we know this information coming from Fort Stewart right now.
And Louis, we're hearing the FBI is now offering assistance. How does that part of this work in terms of trying to now coordinate the law enforcement response?
Well, there's a lot of coordination taking place, Diane, because this is a federal facility. So automatically, the federal government's law enforcement arms are going to be involved. And in this case, this would be the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. You also have local law enforcement, some of which you're seeing on your screen there. When a situation like this takes place at a military facility, you're going to see a surge of resources from the local community as well as the in-house security forces at some of these facilities. So we immediately start thinking about military policemen, but there's also a civilian law enforcement force that is active at most military bases. They are affiliated with the Pentagon. And so then you see the civilian law enforcement from neighboring counties, from cities, neighborhoods around the military bases. You also see the military police. You also see the coordination with some of that civilian Pentagon law enforcement that we're talking about. So you're going to see a surge in resources. Another thing that you're going to see at a military facility as large as Fort Stewart is that there is also a medical facility associated with the base. And in this case, it's the Wynn Medical Center. So we are reaching out to see if there are any reports of any casualties that have been transferred to that facility.
All right, Louis Martinez for us.
So this again, we don't still have, I'm getting a report that they have the sergeant named, who apparently is the active shooter. It was a sergeant. It was a U.S. Army member, apparently, who was assigned to Fort Stewart. I'm going to try to verify his name because I don't want to throw it out there unless we have it verified by the media. Let's see if we could get this up on the screen. There's let's see what we could do here. We have another report. Let's see, coming from the Army. Let's see if they name the active shooter and give us more information relative to who this actually is. Let me get this up on the screen. We're ready to go.
Fort Stewart, Georgia, shot and wounded 5 of his fellow soldiers here on Fort Stewart.
Let me go back a little bit, guys, to get his name.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us. This morning, shortly before 11 o'clock, an active duty soldier assigned to Fort Stewart, Georgia, shot and wounded 5 of his fellow soldiers here on Fort Stewart. Thankfully, all are in stable condition and all are expected to recover. The alleged shooter is in custody. We have reestablished security. I have lifted all lockdown measures on Fort Stewart, and there is currently no threat to the local community. I'd like to recognize and thank our Army law enforcement and medical personnel and our partners from local, state, and federal law enforcement and emergency services for their quick response and support. I would also like to thank the brave soldiers who immediately intervened and subdued the shooter. These soldiers, without a doubt, prevented further casualties. Our wounded soldiers were initially evacuated to Wynn Army Community Hospital right here on Fort Stewart. All arrived in stable condition, and 3 of the 5 required surgical intervention. 2 have been transported to Memorial Hospital in Savannah, Georgia for additional care. We have identified the alleged shooter as Sergeant Cornelius Radford, an automated logistics sergeant assigned to 2nd Brigade Combat Team. Sergeant Radford has not previously deployed to combat. Sergeant Radford has been interviewed by the Army Criminal Investigation Division and is currently in pretrial confinement, awaiting a charging decision by the Office of the Special Trial Counsel. Right now, our primary focus is first on caring for our injured soldiers and their families, and also supporting the soldiers of the Spartan Brigade. All of the families of the victims have been notified, and we're wrapping our arms around them and ensuring we provide them all the support that we can. Before I take questions, I want to remind you that this is an ongoing investigation and we're still gathering questions. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll now take your questions.
General Lewis will be in Coastal News. Can you give us what unit he was assigned to and how long he served in the Army? If you didn't mention that.
Yeah, he is assigned to one of our sustainment units here in 2nd Brigade Combat Team at Fort Stewart. And I will have to confirm how long he served with us. Yes, sir.
Sergeant Russ Bynum with the Associated Press. As best you can, knowing it's so early, can you walk us through where this happened, what happened, the shooting, and were the victims subordinates to the sergeants, or were they people over him in rank?
Yeah, right now it's premature, and we're gathering a lot of the information. What we know is the soldier, the shooting occurred at the soldier's place of work. It did involve his coworkers. We're still not certain about the motivations, but again, he's been interviewed by Army investigators, and we believe we'll gain more information here shortly.
We've heard that the shooter.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if this was any kind of training exercise, or were they cleaning any weapons, anything that you know so far?
No, ma'am. We don't have any reason to believe it had anything to do with a training event. Other than that, I can't state the motivations for this soldier.
We've heard that the shooter may have been from Jacksonville, Florida. Are you able to confirm that? We also heard that he had maybe been arrested for DUI recently.
Yeah, at this point, I can't confirm where he's from. We can follow up on that. I do believe he was arrested locally for a DUI that was unknown to his chain of command until the event occurred, and we started looking into the law enforcement databases.
Robin, now from the current, can you tell us whether or not that was a military weapon or whether this was a personal weapon that the person brought on base?
Yes, ma'am. I can confirm it was not a military weapon, and we believe it was a personal handgun.
Just a short
Yes, sir.
Saturday morning news. What does this mean for ongoing security measures that this situation was able to occur with a personal weapon?
Yeah, I'm very confident in the security of this installation. We've got a great partnership with local law enforcement. As you can see here at our gates, we have armed guards in protective equipment. This one's a bit difficult, and we're going to have to determine how he was able to get a handgun to his place of duty.
Alicia, what news for Jax? Has the suspect had any prior disciplinary or behavioral issues on base?
No, ma'am, not that we're aware of. But again, it's early in the investigation, but not that I'm currently aware of.
I know that.
You mentioned that some soldiers helped subdue him. Do you know if his arrest ultimately surrendered peacefully or was his arrest involved?
I don't have the details on that, but I know that his soldiers in the area that witnessed the shooting immediately and without hesitation tackled the soldiers, subdued him, that allowed law enforcement to then take him into custody.
And we've got time for one more question.
I know that you can't speak to the motivation, but if this turns out to be some situation where somebody had extremist beliefs or maybe classified as a terrorist attack, I mean, how does that change the base's response or the base's investigation moving forward?
Yeah, currently we have no reason to believe any of that is the case. However, we continuously assess the threat environment, both in the immediate area and across our Army and DoD installations, and we will address the threat level accordingly.
You have the rank of the shooter?
Yes, sir. He was a sergeant. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your questions. And again, thanks to the local responders and the local community for their help. Thanks and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
That was General
I'm going to give you
Lubas.
the proper spelling. I'm going to give you the spelling of the assailant. The first name is Cornelius. It's spelled Quornelius. Last name is Radford. 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 He's 28 years old.
And there was some mention he was second logistics. I didn't get all of that.
Yeah, so he is
He's an automated logistics sergeant.
logistics sergeant. A 92 Alpha.
So we don't know right now. And, the General Lubas, he gave a great little presentation there. And as all professional people know, that you never answer questions that you have no idea the answer to. And especially if it's preliminary, you can't give an answer. Let me see if I can get a picture of this sergeant up on the screen. Because I think that's important for everyone to take a look and see what he looks like. That's a sort of a strange name for Cornelius. Quornelius, Radford. Let's see if they have posted a picture yet of him. I'm not sure if it's posted yet. Sergeant Cornelius Radford. I don't want to put the incorrect photo, so unless I have it, unless it's absolutely, let me see. I'm going to put this up on the screen. So this is accompanied by the Fox News emblem. So, and it's with the general in the foreground. There's a picture of the suspected shooter right there, Sergeant Cornelius Radford. So we still don't know the why. What we do know is that one of the big questions that was answered was that the weapon that was recovered, they believe was his own personal weapon. It was not a military weapon. So you ask, the question begs to be asked, how did he get that weapon onto the base? How was that possible? And those are, I don't know if we had anything with President Trump, if he got to, he was supposed to have a press conference at 4. I don't know if he mentioned this. Of course, the president is the commander in chief. I can't verify if he in fact did report this or did comment upon this. But what we do have is a lot of information, but not. Hang on, let me put this up. It's good, and I'm sorry I'm skipping around a lot, but I'm trying to get the most up to date and the most thorough information, and some of the information that we do not yet have. So let me play this from. This is also from Fox.
Joe Cardinale back in. Joe, you've been standing by with us throughout the breaking news. Just want to alert our viewers, we've got new video outside of the hospital there where Steve Harrigan was reporting top of the hour that we were able to see 2 of the 5 soldiers who were shot, transported to the area hospitals on stretchers. We are praying, Joe, for their condition. We just don't have any further information, but we are hoping for the absolute best. But we do know 5 of those soldiers were shot. As we may wait more information on the shooter, your thoughts, Joe?
Well, once again, I'm just, kudos to the military for the quick, you have an active shooter at just before 11, and then right about an hour, a little after an hour later, you have an active shooter in custody. So that, that says a lot for a base that size. I mean, it's a city within a city right there. So I my hat's off to them, and just let the process play out right now, because there's a lot of questions that have to be answered, the weapon and everything else, as we spoke to before. And I don't know whether this hospital is the one that's on the base, and if not, that means they transported them to another hospital that's probably a level higher than the level 4 that Wynn has. So the families are probably notified at this point, and this way everybody is, understanding that this is the process that has to play out, whether it's on an Army base or off an Army base.
Just want to just make sure yeah, and Joe, we do have the information on that. They were treated on site on the base. The wounded were then taken to the Memorial Health University Medical Center in Savannah. And to your point, that hospital is a top-level trauma center for coastal Georgia. So they are in good hands, Joe.
Excellent. And you know what? I think at 3:30, when the military gives their statement, I think you're going to get the answers that you need and which way this investigation is going. They'll try to put a rhyme or reason to it without giving out too much. And like I said, I think things will start to come into play. The past of this individual, anything that he may have planned, or is this just spontaneous? Did he have problems with these individuals? We don't know, but I'm sure we will get the answers to that.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click.
So, again, a lot of questions, not a lot of answers here. However, we do know that the weapon that was used was a handgun. Okay, so, and it appears to be Sergeant Cornelius Radford, age 28. He's in custody. He is the active shooter. Apparently, he was disarmed by other soldiers. 5 were shot. All of them were transported to the hospitals in stable condition. However, 3 out of the 5 that were shot are now or needed surgery. So they went into surgery. So that would indicate a more serious level of being wounded than the other 2 that didn't have to go into surgery. Folks, now a word from our sponsor, FanDuel. FanDuel is a legal and regulated online sports betting platform operating in the United States, and it allows users to bet real money on the outcomes of sports events across major leagues such as the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, and more. FanDuel also offers daily fantasy sports and online casino games in certain states. What FanDuel offers: sportsbook, bet on sports games and player props. Daily fantasy sports, draft a lineup under a salary cap and win based on player performance. Casino, online slots, blackjack, roulette, etc. in select states. Live betting, place bets in real time during games. That is FanDuel, a new sponsor for Police Off the Cuff. So again, a lot of questions we have. What about this man, Sergeant Cornelius Radford? What was his beef? What was it that caused him to bring a gun onto at his workplace, apparently? And his job was defined as he is an automated logistics sergeant. And the brigade that he was involved in was a Spartan brigade, the 2nd Brigade, but they said he's never been to combat. That would be one of the things that you would, of course, be concerned with. Oh, was this some kind of post-traumatic stress from combat? I don't think so. I don't think that's what it was, but that's going to be part of this investigation. What was it that that made him bring a gun to work and shoot some of his coworkers? You know, what was it? What made him do that? What precipitated this? And that's all going to be part of this investigation. And in all of these active shooter investigations, it's in flux. It's something that you have to wait for the answers. If you want accurate, true information, you have to await for the results of the investigation.
Last year.
Yeah, so that is certainly a good thing. But let's look.
Is happening between the Democrats and Republicans.
Guys, I'm trying to find where they talk about this active shooter. Apparently, this is, let's see.
Investigators, and so they were asked about the safety of the Army base, the installation there, and here's what they said.
Very confident in the security of this installation. We've got a great partnership with local law enforcement. As you can see here at our gates, we have armed guards in protective equipment. This one's a bit difficult, and we're going to have to determine how he was able to get a handgun to his place of duty.
So one of the challenges that may pose in the investigation, they said, because that's something they're going to have to figure out, you know, what exactly, how he was able to kind of get that gun in.
Right, and that's a big misunderstanding I think a lot of people have about Army bases, is everybody's not just walking around with a gun. They're all locked up and put away. So I was hearing some people talking about it in the grocery store, and they said, well, didn't everybody have a gun? Well, no, it doesn't work that way. They're locked away until you're actually having your training. But this guy obviously brought one in from home, it looks like. All right, this next report is getting a lot of attention across the country today. The reigning Miss United States.
So to give an update, and again, there's not a great deal of information. The active shooting took place at 11:04 a.m. on Fort Stewart in Georgia, which is one of the largest military bases east of the Mississippi. 5 soldiers were shot, and apparently they were shot by this man, Sergeant Cornelius Radford, who worked with the same individuals who were shot. Out of the 5 individuals who were shot, all of them apparently were in stable condition upon arrival at the hospital, but 3 of them, their injuries necessitated surgery. So they had to go into surgery for whatever reason. Was it because was it because the bullet had lodged against something, or was in a precarious place? Or just sometimes with shootings, surgeons have to do exploratory surgery to stop the internal bleeding. The internal bleeding can kill you just as much as external bleeding. So many times they will have to go into surgery just again to stop the internal bleeding, because that, as I said, that can also kill you. And so 3 out of the 5 soldiers that were shot apparently worked with Sergeant Cornelius Radford, and 3 of them had to go into surgery. All 5 of them were described as being in stable condition upon arrival at the hospitals.
Were put on lockdown right away at that time. Let me walk you through the timeline quickly. It was 10:56 a.m. when the initial call came in that there was an active shooter. The shooter was apprehended 39 minutes later at 11:35 a.m. It only took 8 minutes for the entire 280,000 acres of Fort Stewart to be completely locked down. They do have security protocols in place for these types of situations that they hope they never have to use, but can use when they happen. And we saw that happen today. Fort Stewart lifted the lockdown on the main area about 12:10. I can tell you that as of now, the only area that still is under lockdown is that 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team area. That is where the shooting happened. We've heard offline, we're not putting them on the air until we can verify their authenticity, but some of the 911 calls came in about those 5 injured and that they had some medical people on the scene very quickly. Initially, everyone was treated there on the base, and again.
So there's some static with this. So let me just talk you through this. What we do know is that 5 soldiers were shot. All right. And they worked with the shooter. This man here, Sergeant Cornelius Radford, who is, his job was described as an automated logistics sergeant. So apparently he had never been assigned to combat. The motive for the shooting, unknown at this time. It's clear that he targeted the people that he worked with. Again, unknown reason. We don't know the reason why that occurred. We do know that 5 people were shot and that all 5 are alive, brought to local hospitals. 3 out of the 5 are in surgery. Apparently their condition is stable on all of them. Obviously the ones that didn't have to go into surgery would appear to have lesser injuries than the ones who did have to go into surgery. So the Fort Stewart was put on lockdown. At this point, I believe it's off lockdown. This is one of the largest Army bases on the East Coast. You heard the acreage, absolutely gigantic. The gun that was used was a handgun. The handgun used hasn't been verified, but apparently it was his. They believe it was his firearm, his own personal handgun. So we know A, it was a handgun. B, they believe that it was his own personal gun. It was not a U.S. Army issued gun. So those are all questions that they were able to answer very early on. Let me play this again from Fox.
Updates on the active shooter situation at Fort Stewart Army Post in Georgia. A suspect is in custody with as many as 5 people injured. Joining us on the phone, Fox News contributor and retired NYPD Inspector Paul Morrow. Paul, thank you for joining us. Look, this Army base covers nearly 280,000 acres. What does that kind of containment look like? We know the suspect is in custody, but what would that protocol look like as a lockdown is called into place and an active shooter on the loose?
Well, the first thing to recognize is the jurisdiction here is federal, right? So it's going to be an internal thing right from the get-go with Army CID having to take it on the investigation. So the response that you're talking about, that'll be the authorities that are on the base. They'll have protocols. They'll even have protocols worked out with the local police. There'll be these mutual agreements that they have as to who responds to what. Sometimes they work together. If there is a hook outside the base, let's say somebody's running narcotics into the base or something like that. These bases are huge. They're like mini cities. And so they have to work all this stuff out ahead of time. And they get these kinds of cases. But in the investigatory stage, as I said, it'll go likely to CID unless we have an instance of terrorism, in which case the FBI, by presidential executive order, it goes over to the FBI. And all of this matters because, you know, we've seen this kind of thing before. 2009, during the real sort of heyday of the metastasization of Al-Qaeda, we had the Fort Hood shooting, Major Nadal. And I raised that just to pinpoint maybe how lucky we were in this instance, because on an Army base, you have very heavy weaponry. You have really heavy ordnances, and these people are trained to shoot to kill. That's what soldiers do. And in that case, we had 13 fatalities and over 30 wounded, including some of the local cops who responded and were completely outgunned. That was a case of terrorism. The Obama administration didn't want to classify it as such. It went down as workplace violence, and there was a lot of hubbub about it. I was working counterterrorism at the time and was quite incredulous, and that was a story, a case that we studied very closely. So all of these vectors are blowing through this thing. When you see something like this, if you're sitting where I am, having done that kind of work, you think, is it a terrorism incident? Is it something that could have been interdicted? Was there some indicia ahead of time that maybe there was some psychological issues? All of these are after effects, obviously. These are things that you think about in retrospect, because the most important thing, of course, as you say, is to lock it down, make sure life and limb are preserved, that everybody is safe, and that you interdict the immediate threat.
Emily, we do have some new information on the people shot. So I want to jump into that. There have been 5 soldiers who were shot today in this active shooter incident in the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team area. All soldiers were treated on site and moved to Wynn Army Community Hospital for further treatment. There is no active threat to the community. Law enforcement was dispatched for the possible shooting in the 2nd, what I just called Armored Brigade Combat Team area. And Emily gave the timeline a little while ago, and so we know how quickly this moved. So that was at 10:56 a.m. local, then 11:35 a.m. they apprehended the suspected shooter. The installation was locked down 11:04, and Fort Stewart has now lifted the lockdown of the main containment area, and that happened a few minutes ago, actually. We were waiting for this press release to come out, and so we could...
You know, as I was speaking about before, there's several things that, you know, in an investigation, you can never take anything for granted. And I mentioned earlier on in this broadcast, one of the first things they should do is go to the residence of Sergeant Radford, Sergeant Cornelius Radford, to make sure that he hasn't shot and killed anyone in his residence. That is really what I would call investigation 101. They also have to be very cognizant of the fact that there could be booby traps, both in his house or in his car or other places. So they have to be very much aware of that. Doing his whole background check while he was in the Army. Apparently, although he had recently got a DUI, which the military was not aware of. So was that concerning to him in regards to his military career? Now in doing all of these background checks and the investigative checks, they found out about this DUI. Does that have anything to do with this shooting? Unknown. Too early in the investigation. It takes time to get accurate information. If you want instant information, it will not be accurate. So you have to wait. And all of us here, one of the things that we're very happy about is, A, there were no fatalities. There were 5 people shot. 3 of them apparently went into surgery. 2 of them are in stable condition. They had all been were brought to Wynn Army Community Hospital. The more serious ones that needed surgery were probably airlifted to a trauma center, a higher level trauma center, specifically the soldiers that needed surgery. Again, to repeat, the shooter, Sergeant Cornelius Radford, shot 5 other soldiers. It was a handgun, and it was apparently his own personal handgun. This is the best picture I have right now. This is what was put out. That's Sergeant Cornelius Radford. He is in custody right now. He's being interviewed. He's being interrogated by the Army investigators. And then, of course, because this is a federal crime, the FBI will get involved in this, and they'll do an extremely thorough investigation to find out all the things we need to know, all the questions we have to answer, all the questions that we might have.
See some things that were unconfirmed, and now we can put those on the record. The area of the shooting, that 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team area, remains on lockdown at this point. But the main cantonment, I should say, area is lifted from the lockdown. So people, emergency medical personnel are dispatched to treat the wounded. There's some movement now on base, that sort of thing. I still don't know, and Paul, maybe you and Emily will talk about this, about being able to go in and off that base because the front gates aren't really being talked about much. But the term you were using, CID, the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command, it's interesting. A lot of this was handled internally, including their injuries. So Paul and Emily, just as you were saying.
Yeah, so one thing we have to remember now is that this is a crime scene, and it could be a very mobile crime scene. So you're going to default to what the rule of thumb with a crime scene is that you make it, if anything, bigger. You don't want to shrink it because you don't want to look at backwards and say, well, we lost some potential evidence here. So the crime scene is likely going to be quite large, at least initially, until they decide to unfreeze it. But you can guarantee that there are a lot of investigatory people there right now viewing it as a crime scene. Again, after the initial response, when you make sure everything is safe and everybody is being treated, and, we pray that everybody is going to be okay. But once you've interdicted the immediate threat and you're into the investigation stage, yeah, you're going to have a big, big crime scene. And look, they're going to ask for help. And as I said, they're going to get full support from many of the federal authorities and guarantee the FBI is already en route. And then, you're going to be doing this big backwards scrub to see, should we have known? Was the person treated for psychological issues? Is it a soldier? Is it civilian personnel? Is it a ranking officer? Is there contact overseas? Was the person part of an intelligence unit? We don't know what set this off. But the risk, as I mentioned earlier, is always the fact that not only are these things very, very big, but you have guns, and you have high-powered guns. And that was the thing that really came out in the Fort Hood shooting, because Major Nidal got his hands on military-grade weaponry as a ranking officer, and he did a tremendous amount of damage. So we could have really gotten lucky on this one.
We know already that the gun was a handgun. It wasn't, what you hear all the time in active shooters, a military-style assault weapon, such as an AR-15 or an M4 that was used in the shooting in New York City. So right now we do know that, in fact, it was a handgun. And the sergeant, who they now know his name, and as I said, I'm going to try to get a better picture. That's the best picture we have right now. Sergeant Cornelius Radford is the shooter. He is in custody. Apparently, he worked with the 5 individuals who he shot. So could this be a work beef, or, as they called the Major Hassan Nidal shooting back in 2009, workplace violence? I mean, that made no sense. That had terrorism written all over it. But do we know any of the answers to that? I'm going to try to get us a better picture of Sergeant Cornelius Radford. But right now, that was the best picture that was available online. Let me see if they have put anything better up yet. Apparently not. I'm not seeing any other. I'm not seeing it. They don't like to put these pictures out until they're 1,000% sure. And the spelling of his name, Qurneilius, Cornelius, is a little bit strange spelling. There's no images yet. There's a possibility they could have a picture of him on Facebook, for example. That may be on the Fort Stewart Facebook site. I'll take a look at that in a second. But to recap, 5 individuals shot by an active shooter. And his name is Cornelius Radford, Sergeant Cornelius Radford. I have a better picture, I'm thinking. Of course, you can always count on Facebook to have the most updated photo, and I'll put it up on the screen as soon as I can upload it here. And there you go, guys. There's the most updated picture we have of Sergeant Cornelius Radford. That is, there's even a better one. I think I'll post this also, but we don't know, again, no motive. We don't have a motive. We know that he shot 5 individuals that he worked with. There we go. There's another picture. Man suspected of shooting 5 soldiers, identified as Sergeant Cornelius Radford, 28, and they're saying he's from Jacksonville, Florida. That's what we have right now. That's the most updated picture of him. Again, at this point, there's no motive. There's no motive of this. That's going to take a little bit. We probably won't have that until tomorrow. But I'm sure there's a ton of more information that we will receive as this case unfolds. But I think we would all rather accurate information rather than information that is inaccurate, just to get it out there quickly. And I think that we want this to be the most accurate information that we could possibly get. I'm going to put this up on the screen again, even though it may be a little bit redundant, but not people are tuning in at different times now. So this is, again, it comes on as breaking news, but we know it's not exactly breaking.
Breaking news alert comes from Fort Stewart, Georgia. Let's listen in. 5 soldiers were shot earlier today. The shooter's been arrested. Let's listen in.
In just a moment, I'm going to introduce you to Brigadier General John Lubis. That's spelled John, Lubis, Lubas. He's the commanding general of the 3rd Infantry Division. Brigadier General Lubis will make a statement regarding the incident and take a few brief questions. Before we begin, however, I'd like to go over just a couple things with you. We have limited time for questions, given that this is an ongoing investigation, and we may not have all the information that we can share, but we will try to be as transparent as possible. We will not release the name of any victims until the next of kin notification has been complete. We will not speculate as to any intentions, motives, or backstories, given that this is an ongoing investigation. When you ask your questions, we ask that you please give your name and the affiliation in case we need to do a follow-up. And it's a little hard to hear, so please speak up so that General Lubis can hear you and that you can hear him. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I will now turn it over to General Lubis.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us. This morning, shortly before 11 o'clock, an active duty soldier assigned to Fort Stewart, Georgia, shot and wounded 5 of his fellow soldiers here on Fort Stewart. Thankfully, all are in stable condition and all are expected to recover. The alleged shooter is in custody. We have reestablished security. I have lifted all lockdown measures on Fort Stewart, and there is currently no threat to the local community. I'd like to recognize and thank our Army law enforcement and medical personnel and our partners from local, state, and federal law enforcement and emergency services for their quick response and support. I would also like to thank the brave soldiers who immediately intervened and subdued the shooter. These soldiers, without a doubt, prevented further casualties. Our wounded soldiers were initially evacuated to Wynn Army Community Hospital right here on Fort Stewart. All arrived in stable condition, and 3 of the 5 required surgical intervention. 2 have been transported to Memorial Hospital in Savannah, Georgia for additional care. We have identified the alleged shooter as Sergeant Cornelius Radford, an automated logistics sergeant assigned to 2nd Brigade Combat Team. Sergeant Radford has not previously deployed to combat. Sergeant Radford has been interviewed by the Army Criminal Investigation Division and is currently in pretrial confinement, awaiting a charging decision by the Office of the Special Trial Counsel. Right now, our primary focus is first on caring for our injured soldiers and their families, and also supporting the soldiers of the Spartan Brigade. All of the families of the victims have been notified, and we're wrapping our arms around them and ensuring we provide them all the support that we can. Before I take questions, I want to remind you that this is an ongoing investigation and we're still gathering questions. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll now take your questions.
General Lewis Levine, Coastal News. Can you give us his what unit he was assigned to and how long he served in the Army? If you didn't mention it.
Yeah, he is assigned to one of our sustainment units here in 2nd Brigade Combat Team at Fort Stewart. And I will have to confirm how long he served with us. Yes, sir.
Russ Bynum with the Associated Press. As best you can, knowing it's so early, can you walk us through where this happened, what happened in the shooting, and were the victims subordinates of the sergeants, or were they people over him in rank?
Yeah, right now it's premature, and we're gathering a lot of the information. What we know is this soldier, the shooting occurred at the soldier's place of work. It did involve his co-workers. We're still not certain about the motivations, but again, he's been interviewed by Army investigators, and we believe we'll gain more information here shortly.
General,
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if this was any kind of training exercise, or were they cleaning any weapons, anything that you know so far?
No, ma'am. We don't have any reason to believe it had anything to do with a training event. Other than that, I can't state the motivations for this soldier.
We've heard that the shooter may have been from Jacksonville, Florida. Are you able to confirm that? We also heard that he had maybe been arrested for DUI recently.
Yeah, at this point, I can't confirm where he's from. We can follow up on that. I do believe he was arrested locally for a DUI that was unknown to his chain of command until the event occurred, and we started looking into the law enforcement databases.
Robin, now from the current, can you tell us whether or not that was a military weapon or whether this was a personal weapon that the person brought on stage?
Yes, ma'am. I can confirm it was not a military weapon, and we believe it was a personal handgun. Yes, sir.
What does this mean for ongoing security measures that this situation was able to occur?
Yeah, I'm very confident in the security of this installation. We've got a great partnership with local law enforcement. As you can see here at our gates, we have armed guards in protective equipment. This one's a bit difficult, and we're going to have to determine how he was able to get a handgun to his place of duty.
OHLA News for Jack. Has the suspect had any prior disciplinary or behavioral issues on base?
No, ma'am, not that we're aware of. But again, it's early in the investigation, but not that I'm currently aware of.
You mentioned that some soldiers helped subdue him. Do you know if his arrest ultimately he surrendered peacefully, or what did his arrest?
I don't have the details on that, but I know that his soldiers in the area that witnessed the shooting immediately and without hesitation tackled the soldier, subdued him, that allowed law enforcement to then take him into custody.
And we've got time for one more question.
I know that you can't speak to the motivation, but if this turns out to be some situation where somebody had extremist beliefs or maybe classified as a terrorist attack, I mean, how does that change the base's response or the base's investigation moving forward?
Yeah, currently we have no reason to believe any of that is the case. However, we continuously assess the threat environment, both in the immediate area and across our Army and DoD installations, and we will address the threat level accordingly.
You get the rank of the shooter?
Yes, sir. He was a sergeant. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your questions. And again, thanks to the local responders and the local community for their help. Thanks, and have a great afternoon.
So a good update. A good update. We know, again, to do a quick update, 5 people were shot. It occurred at 11:04 a.m. on Fort Stewart in Georgia, which is one of the biggest military installations east of the Mississippi, 280,000 acres. When there was the report of an active shooter, the whole base was locked down. Soldiers subdued the shooter, whose name is, he's actually a soldier also, Sergeant Cornelius Radford. He's apparently from Jacksonville, Florida. The soldiers that subdued him prevented further carnage, further injuries, and as the General Lubas said, who's the commanding officer of Fort Stewart, that they're all heroes, and they undoubtedly prevented others from being shot, others from being injured. This situation ended very quickly because of the actions of these soldiers. 5 people shot. All of them were in good condition when they reached the on-base hospital, Wynn Army Community Hospital, which is right on Fort Stewart. Stable condition. Let's not use the word good. 3 out of the 5 were brought to major trauma centers because they needed surgical interdiction. In shooting incidents, it's quite common that surgeons want to go inside and take a look and make sure they can stop internal bleeding so that they can save the life of the person and persons who were shot here. So that this could have been, of course, a lot worse. It always can be a lot worse. But again, the actions of these soldiers in stopping the shooter really helped this situation be curtailed quite quickly. The base is now open. It's no longer under lockdown. And apparently, General Lubas said there is no threats to any military personnel or any civilians as a result of this shooting, and the lockdown has been called off. Folks, if you're new to this channel, hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, like the show, make comments, share us with your friends and family. If you want to contribute financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels. And Carol Grayston, thank you so much. She donated 5 police off-the-cuff memberships to 5 lucky people. And Jay Mofo, I love that. I love that name. He donated 1. Here he is right there, Jay Mofo. He donated 1 membership to a lucky person. I want to thank you guys. That's what keeps this channel going. That's what keeps this channel growing. And we appreciate all of you guys. So this was like an unexpected live. I just went live when I saw this going on. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. Have a great night, everyone. And we'll give you an update perhaps tomorrow. Have a great night, and God bless everyone.
One episode